All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to politely request that we all have our seats so we can start officially. Thank you. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Consul General of the Kingdom of Netherlands, members of the diplomatic corps here present, stakeholders and heavyweights in the Nigeria energy sector, captains of industries who are here, good evening and welcome. It is my honor to formally welcome you to this summit as we continue to rub minds and brainstorm as regards improving the energy situation in Nigeria. Without further ado, I want to stand on all existing protocol and also state very, very clearly that I have been briefed that we will not be having any formal recognition today, but we'll be going straight to business. Permit me to introduce myself. My name is Jonathan Ame. I am proudly Nigerian, and I am from one of Nigeria's oil-producing regions. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm from Kogi State, and we produce palm oil. I will be the compere and chief servant of this ceremony from the podium. Thank you very, very much. Well, to set the ball rolling, I would like to invite for the welcome address a man who has worked very, very hard and contributed immensely in improving energy in Nigeria. I've known him for years, and I was smiling when I saw him today because I've not seen him in at least a decade. It's an honor to see you once again. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please give a warm welcome and a round of applause for the lead Energy Policy Commission at the NESG. Please help me make welcome Dr. Segun Adaju.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I want to say thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Segun Adaju. I also have the privilege of facilitating the Energy Policy Commission at the NESG. The Policy Commission consists of about 4 thematic areas: power, renewables, gas, and oil and condensates. Please, I'll kindly ask for your kind attention. Please, can we have some silence in the room? Thank you so much. We are volunteers, and I also want to seize this opportunity to invite you to volunteer in any of the policy commissions, but specifically energy. I'm a renewable energy enthusiast and somebody who takes deep interest in that. Most times when we hear of grid collapse, I'm sure we heard of one recently. Okay, all right. Number 5, okay. Many of us, generate a lot of reaction, particularly people in city centers. But there are communities where they do not have the privilege of grids, and they don't know about this grid collapse that you're talking about. Okay, so our conversation this evening most likely might revolve around those kind of communities. We talked about deprived climes. I was discussing with Michelle, okay, to say, look, deprived climes. So they're about almost half of Nigeria that is not connected to the national grid, close to 100 million people. So how do we catalyze economic growth and transformation in these areas that are deprived? What is the way out? Should they wait for the grid? How many decades will it take to get those kind of communities on the grid? Remembering very clearly that to extend the grid also costs money. Per kilometer, depending on where you are located, it could be as low as $6,000 per kilometer, and it could get as high as $30,000 if you are in some mountainous areas and some difficult areas like Nigeria. So should they wait for the grid? So what is the value of getting those kind of communities powered? For example, access to health services, agri value chain, technology, for example, and then increasing productivity. how do we scale? Now, I am particularly very also happy about this buzzword, scaling. That means there are case studies that has already been done in Nigeria. So what we're thinking about now is scaling. And I'm also excited that the panel and the esteemed speakers this evening are people who have, done this kind of case studies that Nigeria needs to, scale and replicate in deprived areas. So, models, for example, from the Rural Electrification Agency, taking a typical example of the NEP, at least a minimum of 1.5 million connections, if I'm correct, from solar home system alone. Mini grids are being deployed. The likes of Habiba, in terms of very rural communities, I heard that discussing this, a place in Plateau State, Shendam, am I correct? That many of us might not even probably want to get into. Okay, so, the likes of, power stove, right? Okay. And also, the embassy and the government of Netherlands, I was also making a special reference to a project across West Africa, 15 West African countries and 4 Sahelian countries, called ROGIP, Regional Off-Grid Electricity Access Project. I know Netherlands is one of the funders. So how do we replicate? How do we scale in large numbers what has been done? I'm aware that the Nigerian market has a potential of between 8,000 to 10,000 mini grid sites that can be viable. So how do we scale? We'll be hearing from these experts who have actually been on the ground, who has put their foot on the ground to showcase what is possible. And then we talk about scaling. So on behalf of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, I want to welcome every one of us to the conversation this evening. And I look forward to a robust engagement and particularly practical solutions that we can take away from here and go and scale in the interest of those deprived communities. On that note, I say welcome and thank you for joining us.
We sincerely appreciate you, Dr. Segun Adaju, for that address. In his address, showed how efforts can be put in motion for renewable energy and how it can also trickle down to improve the lives of small businesses and their holders across rural communities in Nigeria. We appreciate you once again. Permit me to state clearly to the members of the diplomatic community, for those of you who are visiting Nigeria for the very first time, I would like to just tell you a thing or two about my country. Nigeria is a very beautiful place, and this is the only place in the world where the words "how far" has nothing to do with distance covered. So just in case the person seated next to you is not Nigerian, even if he is, turn to the person and say "how far." That's how we greet in Nigeria. Thank you very much. Well, just like Dr. Segun said in his welcome address, this particular session is hosted by the Kingdom of Netherlands. At this point, I will invite for the first keynote address, the Consul General of the Kingdom of Netherlands in Lagos, Nigeria. Please help me give a warm welcome to Mr. Michel Dillon.
Thank you very much. I know at the beginning of this event, we decided not to do protocols, but I would like to welcome the special advisor to Mr. President on energy. Yeah, wow, full house. Welcome once again. Good to see you all, and especially thank you for spending an evening with us. I know it's been a full program. It's been a full day yesterday, and you really have stamina if you're still here now. And as a reward, we'll provide you with food. But first, the work. Renewable electricity and renewable energy is something that we in the Netherlands, from the Dutch perspective, are focusing, I would say, almost 100% on, and to such an extent that we have created a situation in our own country where we have overproduction of solar and wind. And that is a problem in and of itself if you don't have storage capacity and batteries. But that's not the discussion we're going to talk about today. Today is more about bringing energy and electricity in those areas where it is not yet. And some of you might have heard me earlier today that I said my first Nigerian Economic Summit was in 2001. That was the first time as a junior diplomat that I attended this meeting. And look, if you wait long enough, then you get your own podium and you have to organize, you are allowed to organize a session. So, and we have a booth downstairs. But in my stay in Nigeria and my travel through Nigeria, especially on the longer distances from Abuja to Jos, from Jos to Bauchi, from Bauchi to Maiduguri, if you, and I'm sure you've seen this all, you drive through and you see all these electricity poles, kilometers and kilometers and kilometers. And at some moment, some begin to tilt and you say, I hope they won't break. No, you see them tilting and tilting more, and then they go back. And then at one point, something has gone wrong. Either a car has hit the pole or, I don't know, something happened. And then you say, so like 500 kilometers of wire for nothing because it didn't reach where it was supposed to reach. That also shows the vulnerability of a grid, of such a network. And I'm not talking about the high voltage, but just the poles you see along the road. And that doesn't have to be. I have so much respect for the engineers who are working on these lines, because I also saw that there was a casualty statistics reported in the newspapers, and it's not easy work, but it can also be done in another way. But that other way is only interesting if you can really, how should I say, if from an economic point of view, if you benefit from that, price-wise, as long as alternatives are cheaper, people won't move to the next step. And we can talk about climate, we can talk about health, and all of that is true. But for many people in those communities, and for many people in general, the first thing we look at is price. And if the price of the alternative is too high, then you stick with what you have. And if 80% doesn't have electricity, what do they have? Charcoal, firewood, kerosene. I know in some places we try to introduce cooking gas. Cooking gas sounds good because we use cooking gas in the city, so why wouldn't they use cooking gas in the village? But the logistics, the transport, the price, it makes it very difficult. And for some, well, not miraculous, but for some obvious reason, then you end up with solar, or you could end up with wind, or you could end up with hydro, all renewable sources. But if you end up with solar, then it's still a question of price. And in a way, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but in a way, of course, I'm happy that the price of fuel and the price of diesel went up, because that makes solar comparatively more advantageous. But then if you have energy, if you have electricity, and it was just referred to, it helps. It's the next step in the further development. And it's not like you're undeveloped. I have an issue with the word deprived, but that's just me. Because people are not deprived because they want to be deprived. They are deprived because they don't have the access to something that other people in the city have access to. And we are one country, so people should have access. I know the economic reasons, but that's why you have governments and companies and electricity companies to provide people with that. Solar can make it easier if the price is right. And if that price is right, then solar can also be used for productive use, obviously. So it's not just your lamps, your lights, or maybe your oven or your fan, but it can also be your mill, or it can be your small processing plant. And we do a lot in agriculture. We're working now with solar irrigation systems. You made that added step. So it's not just, yeah, you sit there and now you have light. No, you sit there and now you have much more than just light. if the price is right. And that's why I also came to tonight's event actually to learn from those who are actually working in the field, to hear from them what the bottlenecks are, what the challenges are, and if we have reached that moment now where the price is right. Going back to the Dutch perspective and the Dutch activities in Nigeria, we wanted to introduce more solar in the Nigerian market. Actually, we started doing that from a trade promotion perspective by supporting Dutch companies who are active in that field. But we thought, let's make it wider. And that's why we have created something called the Solar Marketplace. And the person for the Solar Marketplace from S&V is with us tonight, so you can ask all the questions to the panelists. The Solar Marketplace, which basically brings together supply, demand, financing options, a way of vetting, a way of answering questions on the introduction of solar where it is not yet present. And now we have this emphasis on rural areas today, maybe, but solar is, of course, good use anywhere. I live in Lagos, and quite often I have people coming to me saying, I know you do solar, you promote solar companies on top of my building, even on top of my railway station. There's need for, or we have an idea, or we have a plan, do you know of a company? So the market is really developing seriously. I also know that some people had bad experiences with cheap installations, with batteries that were not working. Solar is not, it's not like you plug it in, it's there, the sun is for free, and that's it. No, it requires maintenance, obviously, both the panels, the batteries, and the installation. So it's also a business opportunity for those who are in the business of servicing solar installations. So that Solar Marketplace basically brings together, I should actually bring together everybody that's in this room. So I hope that you knew about it, or that if not, that now you know about it, and we will tell you where to find it if you don't know it yet. And please make use of it, because that's also our contribution to, to basically greening Nigeria in that way. And we do hope that also Dutch companies will chip into that. So having said that, let me not talk more, but thank you all once again for coming. But I cannot lay down the microphone without thanking wholeheartedly our colleagues, Val and Bukola, who have organized this together with the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. Thank you very, very much for putting us on the map, but also for organizing an event of which we will all learn something quite important. Thank you very much.
I believe Mr. Michel deserves a louder ovation. Can we please clap for him? Thank you for that keynote address. Permit me to ask, sir, do you have a Nigerian name yet? Okay, I was going to give you one. Well, we will move on now and take the next keynote address. It will be coming from the special advisor to His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on energy. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please receive with a round of applause Mrs. Olu Verhagen? Can we please appreciate her with an applause as she approaches the podium?
Thank you, and it's apt. I'm in a Dutch event, and you didn't butcher my name. Thank you. Close enough. It's Verhagen. So thanks for having me and for organizing this event. Permit me to stand on existing protocols. Let me start by thanking NESG for the kind invitation to address you tonight at this dinner. It is indeed a pleasure to be here with you, and the Kingdom of the Netherlands for hosting and for your collaboration, your decades-long collaboration with the federal government of Nigeria. The NESG has been a consistent and valued partner of government over the last 3 decades. shaping and strengthening public policy and thinking, demonstrating the extent of what is possible when we prioritize collaboration. The theme of tonight's conversation is really around catalyzing economic transformation by scaling renewable solutions. I take exception to deprived as well, because I like to think of us as blessed in abundance, just we haven't figured out a way to harness it yet, and that's part of why we're here tonight. But it invites us to focus on, the theme invites us to focus on two concepts: renewable energy and deprived climes, and how the former can be used to address the latter in a transformative and a sustainable manner. There's no gainsaying the role of energy in economic growth and development. No country that has developed or prospered has managed it without an abundance of energy. And the story of Nigeria will not be an exception to this rule. We will not grow or prosper without making energy abundantly and cost-effectively available to power homes, businesses, offices, and factories. As it happens, we're a country vastly blessed with energy resources. Talk about gas, coal, hydro, solar. But sadly, we've not been able to harness these resources on a scale that can consistently deliver the quantities of energy required to power economic growth and industrialization. But tonight is not for lamentation. We all know what the problems are, and we have lived with the painful outcomes of those problems for decades. This is the season for solutions. We must spend our time focusing on moving past age-old problems. And this is what NESG, the Kingdom of Netherlands, and many other partners in this room, and these convenings are all about. How do we mobilize public-private partnerships that are always forward-looking and solutions-focused? Tonight's theme focuses on deprived climates, the parts of Nigeria, rural and urban, that have been left behind in development. These include areas that are not yet connected to the national grid, that are underserved by the national grid, and do not enjoy any priority considerations for electricity supply. Even as we continue to make bold efforts to strengthen and expand the national grid and ensure that every grid customer is metered, and we have a pressing responsibility to take into consideration tens of millions of Nigerians who will not be touched by the grid anytime soon for various reasons. And this is where innovative off-grid solutions come in. It is heartwarming that the federal government is championing various initiatives and programs with a lot of its development partners to service these deprived areas. Solar energy's ubiquity makes it the most widely deployed renewable energy solution in these areas. Across Nigeria, the federal government's Rural Electrification Agency has been busy, very busy, making utility-scale renewable energy infrastructure a reality. Abba is incredibly passionate about this, so I thought I make sure I plug a lot of his projects, one of his projects. So take the example of Shimanka, a rice farming village in Shendam local government area of Plateau State that recently benefited from a 234 kilowatt power solar mini-grid under the REA's Nigeria Electrification Program, the NEP program. The impact has been phenomenal, to say the least. Daily life no longer has to shut down at dusk. Artisans now have clean energy and a cheaper alternative to diesel and PMS generators. Shopkeepers are now able to power their own refrigerators and earn additional income. One of the most interesting things that happened was that suddenly more residents were able to buy milling machines to process their rice paddy for the market. More machines, more agro-processing, more associated economic activity, greater incomes, a simple demonstration of the unstoppable impact of clean and affordable energy. These kinds of stories abound across the country. Communities and livelihoods totally transformed by the deployment of solar in places that had long given up on access to the grid. The challenge before us now is how to scale these interventions in a way that truly is impactful nationally. Imagine the instant socioeconomic impact if every remote community in Nigeria enjoyed this kind of intervention. Imagine what it would do to stem the tide of rural-urban migration. Imagine what it would do for national security, because as we all know, it is this insecurity challenges are also driven by poverty and joblessness. This scaling is a challenge that the president is determined to confront head-on. We must get it done, and it is worthy to note that this evening's team recognizes it as for the necessity that it is. So what will it take to scale? I'll say financing, the right policies and legislation at the federal and subnational levels, new levels of partnerships among stakeholders to ensure that we benefit from synergy. As His Excellency, Vice President Kashim Shettima said in his opening remarks on behalf of the president earlier today, with the right policies, the right partnerships, the right level of commitment, Nigeria can emerge stronger, more competitive, and definitely more resilient. This is where the NESG has to play a vital role. With your long experience in building consensus and collaboration and supporting reform. One point I would also like to leave with you as I close is that we cannot depend exclusively on wholly commercial arrangements to deliver custom electricity to every consumer in Nigeria. This is where governments come in as part of the responsibility to ensure that no one is left behind through implementation of targeted, transparent energy policies to the most vulnerable segments of our population, delivered as in forms of cross subsidies between segments of consumptions or direct payments to the most vulnerable, and even targeted socioeconomic centers that we've said, whether that's education, whether that's health, or even agriculture. As our electricity market evolves and as we scale up the deployment of technology through metering and other reforms of revenue assurance, we will be able to improve the quality of data required to facilitate the delivery of these benefits and electricity to the poorest and the most vulnerable amongst us. I will end on this note of optimism. There are indeed some very exciting prospects ahead of us. And as a government, a country, we will be counting on the close support of all the stakeholders in this room to turn the vision into the lived reality for the people of Nigeria. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Oluvehain, the Special Advisor to the President on Energy. I've just been told that she will be leaving very, very shortly, and I have to call for a very, very quick photo session. So I'd like to invite the Consul General of the Kingdom of Netherlands and also his colleagues from the Netherlands. All the guests stable, please also join her here for this picture very, very quickly. Thank you very much. Please, the media team, please swing to action. Thank you. The panelists kindly step forward as well. Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate you once again, Mrs. Oluvehain, for that address which has hope and assurance laced around it. That address also assured us of the efforts of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu-led administration in creating more renewable energy solutions for Nigerians, and also how the policies have been put in place and also implementations for it to trickle down to Nigeria's agricultural sector. At this point, we will be moving to the panel discussion session. It will be moderated by David Arize, an off-grid energy lead at DDI. David is a seasoned energy expert with nearly a decade of experience in financing and deploying innovative solutions across power generation, transmission, distribution, and off-grid energy. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me make welcome our moderator, Mr. David Arize, as he comes to take his seat. He will also continue with the proceedings henceforth.
Thank you so much. Warm greetings, everyone. It's such a pleasure to have you in the room today. We're so delighted to have you, Her Excellency, Ms. Oluvirgin Baharian. I've been corrected severally, but yeah, Varai, such a beautiful name, it comes with a lot of panache. That was a very brilliant address you gave us, and we're so grateful to have you here, and to also ex-team members of the panel session that we'll be having, a Consulate General as well of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. We're so grateful to have you. Our very own boss, Dr. Segun Adaju, who is the lead of the Energy Thematic Group in the Nigeria Economic Summit group. We're so grateful to have you as well. And thank you for that, for setting the room, and giving us all those very important information that gives us hope that we are right on track, that the people to get the sector to where it needs to be are currently here. And even those that are not in the room are also contributing immensely towards ensuring that every home and every business in the country is electrified. And so I wouldn't like to take a lot of your time because I want to get right into this party. And you agree with me, it's going to be an interesting one. So right on, I would just like to invite Mr. Abubakar Aliu, who is the Managing Director of the Rural Education Agency. Please join me to a resounding round of applause and to welcome him to take his seat. Next, I would like to invite, I like to call her Hajia Habiba, the CEO of Sosei Renewables. Please join us on stage. Next, I'd like to invite Ms. Essien Susan, who is the Deputy Country Coordinator for SMV in Nigeria. Please join us. If you know the clean cooking story in Nigeria, you know that this guy has not one, not two, but 6 patents. I'm talking about Mr. Eke, Mr. Ese, the CEO of Power Stove. Please join us on stage. And last but not the least, I'd like to welcome Mr. Eze Wosu, Chimereze Wosu, who is an advisor at GIZ and also leads on EVs and clean cooking. So just click tapping till. Thank you so much. Thank you again for joining us this evening. We're so delighted to have you, and we'll just get right into the conversation. Today's section Today's event, Catalyzing Economic Transformation Through Scaling Renewable Energy Solutions to Deprived Climes, is a subject that we are all very passionate about. And we're all working daily, or like call it hourly, to ensure that we contribute our quota to. And just before we get right into some of the questions that I would like to explore from a government perspective, from private sector, and the development community, I'd like to say that the importance of energy in reversing adverse socioeconomic outcomes and driving industrialization, creating jobs, and ultimately fostering economic growth and development cannot be overemphasized. In Nigeria, a country grappling with numerous economic and social challenges, the inefficiencies and shortcomings of the energy sector have hindered progress. Enhancing electricity access in rural areas and increasing supply availability will greatly improve the quality of health services, education, and access to information and communication technologies. With a more reliable electricity supply, rural communities are expected to boost their productivity, across sectors such as agriculture, agro-processing, manufacturing, and industries, both light and heavy, as well as services. Therefore, rural education is essential for Nigeria's socio-economic development. And I would just like to take the first question to our very own MD of the Rural Education Agency. Do you have? Great, thank you. We've heard about the challenges, but we'll not just dwell on the challenges tonight. But we believe that while we talk about the challenges, laced within those challenges are also solutions that can be explored. And so we'll just go on to talk about how does the government plan to address the infrastructure and bureaucratic challenges that often hinder the scale-up of renewable energy projects in the country?
Thank you very much, David. I think the speech given by Olu, my sister, had already said it all. One, it's an enabling policy for government to create. She mentioned 4 key things. I put them off hand: policy, financing, partnership, and commitment. And that's all. That said it all. In one of the events that I attended, I remember vividly the CFO of African Development Bank stated that based on the challenge facing Africa, and specifically in Nigeria, and the huge number of people that need to be provided with this electricity access, we need to up our game, and we need to focus on very big things for us to be able to address this challenge, provide this level of infrastructure. And he enumerated them in a very clear manner. One is that we have to move away from the small scale project to much bigger scale projects. We have to crystallize local financing. We have to also devise means of stimulating demand stimulation. We have to also find a way to do kind of a portfolio management of projects with a view to reduce the cost of managing this project. And thirdly is also to incentivize private sector to be able to bring in their funding to do that. Now, taking these 5 things and just looking at what the current government is doing, one, in terms of designing big, large-scale project, this is exactly what this government is doing. It is on record that we just crystallize the biggest public sector funding in the entire world, a $750 million, which not only being crystallized, but at a record time, in 10 months, the designing, the negotiation, the approval, both of the parliament and the executive, all was done in a record time of 10 months. So this is to show the government's commitment. Secondly, is also to show the ambitions of this project, targeting to electrify 17.5 million Nigerians. It is also on record, apart from India, there is no any structured program that was designed in the entire world that is targeted to remove this large chunk of people that are without access from energy poverty to energy enhancement. There's none on the record apart from what the India has done. Out of the 17.5 million Nigerians, we are very clear that want to electrify 1.5 million using interconnected mini grids, 30 million Nigerians using isolated mini grids, about 12 million Nigerians using productive use, solar home systems, solar standalone for productive use, and mesh grid. So this is one key thing that the government is doing. Now, in terms of crystallizing local financing, just recently we have mobilized the pension fund, the insurance, and the local financing to mobilize 100 billion naira to serve as a private sector counterpart funding for the implementation of the DES, already we have gotten commitment of a number of banks, Stanbic IBTC, FCMB. We are speaking with the lead assurance, and IFC have also committed funding. So this is another area that the federal government is doing. Thirdly is also to look at how ambitious still we are. For those of us that I used to be an on-grid person before porting to the off-grid, maybe because because of the frequent grid collapse, I ported to the off-grid. But jokes apart, look at from the time the sector was privatized to today, the only greenfield capacity that was put onto the grid is the Azura power plant, which is about 450 megawatts. The DES project intends to bring a capacity more than what Azura has put onto the grid. But only this time around is with additional advantage. The DES will bring not only will bring about 498 megawatt of capacity, but with associated distribution network, with 100% metering, with complete SCADA system tied to all this infrastructure to ensure reliability and to ensure minimizing any kind of losses as regards to the generation and transmission distribution of this capacity. So this is also something that the federal government is doing. Then lastly is also seeing what we learned from the on-grid is to enhance the capacity of the vehicles that are delivering this infrastructure, right? We have seen the lessons of the distribution companies, how some of them were performing more under the federal government, and as they move to the private sector, their performance diminishes further. So we don't want to experience that situation. And that is why the private sector partners that we are looking at, we already have started to plan with the end in mind. And this is by ensuring that they build in their own capacity to be able to manage this large scale portfolio of infrastructure. Under the NEPs, some of this private sector are managing less than 20 mini grids. But this time around under this, we are targeting a total of 1,125 mini grids. So moving from 150 to 1,125, you will see a situation whereby a private developer that is managing 10 mini grids would be managing 100. So how it's the internal structure and system of this private developer, how capable are they to meet up with that? And that is why we already quickly put out a system that we call DRIFT, Distributed Renewable Energy Enhancement Fund, which very soon you will see an expression of interest being published that would give opportunity to all these developers to come in and join this. And specifically, we are going to look at their governance structure, internal system, and equip them with what ordinarily they may not have the financial capability to do. For example, we can finance a world-class chief financial officer and second that financial chief CFO to the developer and pay that CFO over a period of time to enhance the financial capabilities of the developer, with a clear also target to say that we expect that in 1 year, all the financial closure that you want to achieve, we want to see at least minimum of 60% closure. So this is also a deliberate attempt to make sure that we, as we are building the infrastructure, we also building the internal capacity of the vehicles that are implementing this infrastructure to be able to deploy and manage over a period of time. So in a nutshell, these are some of the little things we are doing to enhance this infrastructure. Thank you.
Please, a resounding round of applause, please. If you paid attention, you see that we're talking about scaling financing, reducing the bottlenecks, but also ensuring that you build the capacity of the private sector to agenda investor readiness. And I really want to applaud those responses. Thank you so much. And I think with that, we can close the panel, don't you think so? You totally agree. All right. So, it's okay. I would just say, I mean, as a private sector player within the renewable energy sector, tell us, what are the key challenges that you face, in scaling renewable energy projects? You're already a company that has operated for several years, but what would you say are the key challenges from a private sector lens that are hindering the scaling up of renewable energy projects?
All right, thank you, everyone. My name is Okese. Before I answer the question, I also want to educate all of us in this room that anytime they say renewable energy, our mind tilts towards solar. Solar. It's only one time in this room clean cook stove was mentioned, and clean cook stove is part of the renewable energy, and that is what I represent here. So the good thing is that what we've lacked in shining more light in clean cook stoves, in the global stage, we also have gained in the voluntary carbon market, where we can also access funding to be able to scale our challenges, which I'm going to highlight. Part of the I've been doing clean cookies for almost a decade now, and in doing it, I've been able to localize our technologies, looking at the target market we operate in, and also trying to understand how our technology can be able to create the impact and also return revenue to our projections. So one of the key challenges we faced is the purchasing power of our target market, because access to clean cooking is a national problem. When you look at it, most of the rural and deprived communities relies on the forest. We try to call them forest-dependent households. So they go into the forest to look for firewood or whatever they can grab to be able to cook. And that also have a lot of environmental issues. So now their purchasing power is very low, and the quality of the product which we offer them is also higher than their level of earning. So what we've done to be able to solve this is to be able to create a product, learning from the solar home systems, what they've done in pay as you cook, pay as you go, to design what we call pay as you cook. So we avail them the opportunity to own this asset of clean cook stoves, which give them access to cleaner energy for cooking, and also have technology to also give them energy for electricity. Our cook stove allows them to charge their mobile phones, have electricity at home, while they also enjoy clean cooking. But the prices is above what they can earn. So what we did was to combine it with what we call pay-as-you-cook mechanism. So if they don't pay, we can remotely turn it off, to ensure that they keep paying, and to also give assurances to our funders that whatever financing they've advanced towards us will always come back with promise on payment. The second challenge we faced is about what we faced about the increase in the fuel and the diesel. My factory daily demand is about 300 kV of power. That's all we need to drive, our factory. And when the diesel goes up, our costs increase by almost threefold. And the purchasing power of our target market is stagnant. So we don't need to increase the price of the products. So what we've done is to install a solar system, I think 60 kV of solar, to be able to decrease our energy cost, so that we can be able to still maintain the price of the products that we're offering to our users, and also become profitable. Then to move the logistics to the product from Abuja to the deprived communities have also increased, because transportation, haulage, and other logistics have increased. So what we're doing currently, in partnership with a government agency, we're setting up 10 assembly factories, 5 in the north and 5 in the south. So these assembly factories would take raw materials from the mother factory in Abuja and be able to recruit locally, and also produce and do the final assembly. So the cost can be managed. The final price will not increase. This is how we've been able to solve that. Then the third problem we've been able to face, in all these years, is the issue of IP. Most of our technologies, as it goes into these deprived communities, Some people also want to reproduce it and also sell within their communities. But we've tried to get our patent. We have 6 patents of our technologies to be able to allow people to make people to understand that these technologies are owned by a company and they should not be tampered. So these are challenges we faced, and that's how we've been able to overcome it.
Great to hear that thank you very much. A round of applause, please. Clearly, you are one company that has decided not to import from outside the country finished products. I don't want to call any country we take from, but you have decided to show that it's possible. And the fact that you are manufacturing clean cook stoves and other solar home systems shows that manufacturing is possible, local production is possible within the country if you're willing to go within that space. And it drives me to Eze, Mr. Eze, when it comes to thinking about catalyzing investment in the private sector, how do you think the government, or policy generally can incentivize the private sector investment?
Okay, thank you very much, David, for your question. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chimereze Wonsu, and I work as an advisor under the Nigerian Energy Support Program, NESP, which is a technical assistance program co-funded by the European Union and the German government and implemented by GIZ in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Power. So yeah, to your question, I think one of the ways it could incentivize is to reduce the upfront costs. I mean, a very good example is less than 2 weeks ago, the government announced the removal of VAT on CNG, LPG, clean cook stoves, and electric vehicles. And of course, this would go a very long way in reducing the costs, which will make some of these projects even more attractive for private investments. And then policy as well, it could help streamline things. For example, if you observe the sector, you would see that things are a lot easier now than they were, say, 5-7 years ago for like developers, coming into the sector. In terms of like permitting, like under NERC, exactly, and then a lot of framework that have been designed, to help operationalize. Okay. For example, the mini grid under the REA, and then also at NERC, a lot of things have become easier. Developers don't need to cut an arm and a leg and drink blood and their family's blood just to pay for to pay consultants to carry out environmental impact assessments, for example. It's now been further streamlined, and so these things have saved time. They've also saved costs, and then which the final consumer, and so ultimately make the projects more affordable, in quotes, more active, for investments, and overall the sector benefits from that.
Thank you so much for that. Just before we go on to Haji Abiba, I just want to mention to our dear guest in the room that we'll be going into, because this is supposed to be a dialogue, so we want to hear from those in the room. We want to have a very robust conversation. But just thinking about policy, I recently attended an exhibition in Lagos, and maybe you have a response in the next round of questions. And I saw this very beautiful looking electric vehicle, and I decided to man up to ask the price, just because I'm like, I want to go green. Why should I drive a petrol powered vehicle when I can go E, But when I asked the question, I knew the reason why. I just need to keep on driving what I'm driving now. So maybe we will get back to how we can use government policy to drive down costs like that and see instruments that enable people to offtake this kind of technologies, whether EVs, whether it's the solar system. And we'll get back to it because I think the policy has a very huge role to play in one, creating the market, but also incentivizing the market. And Haji Abiba, I'll just go to you and ask the question. What role can collaboration with government and international development organizations play in reducing risk and enhancing project success in the renewable energy sector?
Good evening, everyone. I think I have a cold all of a sudden, so I'm having the worst of voices to be at this event, but yeah, we'll do our best. So interesting that you asked me that because I think one company, or SUSE has been one company that has benefited and we've been able to grow due to collaboration. So maybe you directly asked that. I think it's a very good thing, just as Chimerezi explained about the NESP earlier. What I've seen with, evidently from our activities, how we've been able to become who we are today has simply been because of the kind of collaborations we've had internationally and even nationally amongst us as partners. I'll start with the national one. There's been a number of companies that, even though met me in the space, but we've worked together and achieved, activities together. I'll talk about CREATE. Hannah is here. We've been able to work with CREATE a number of times. We all set up the Renewable Energy Association with Dr. Adaju in 2017 together. We also have done projects together. She was one of the consortium of the companies who did our very well planned USTDA funded feasibility studies across 100 communities in Nigeria. And so that collaboration already just shows what is possible with the people in the country. And we've had support from USAIDF. USAIDF was the first development organization that trusted us to give us money. And we built the first 2 mini grids. SUSE is working with, monitored by DDI. We tied that alongside 2 productive use solutions of drying and kiosks. And this was a targeted one because the region where we put these solutions in Kaduna State are tomato and pepper farming communities. And one of the biggest problems they had was preserving their produce even after the season, and they lost a lot of money during that. But when we were able to put the solar drying hubs, we're able to reduce we were able to reduce losses and we're able to increase income. And I remember the very first time in 2016 when we put in that mini grid solar dryer, some of the farmers came to us and said, do you know where our friends sell solar pepper in the market for 7,000? We are selling for 10,000 per bag. Why? Because their peppers were finer, they looked redder, because they were dried better. As against drying on the floor, they were dried in the solar dryer. And the solar dryer came as a collaboration with a German organization called Inotech. And then we grew on to working with, that project brought us to the eye of the Propcom Make RFI project in, that was housed then on the DFID, which is now FCDU. Yeah, FCU. The names change every time. They were UKA, they were FCDU. So, yeah, so, and that was a 120 million naira project. We had 7 solar drying hubs across Kaduna, Gombe, and Adamawa states. What happens with those hubs is we're able to have a minimum of 10 women in the hubs, managing the hubs, drying produce for the farmers, and also outside of the season, drying produce that they can sell. USAID came in and supported that project to ensure that the women were able to have better drying, better cutting, drying, cleaner hubs, and packaging for their project. I'm mentioning all of this and I'm leaving the best for the last, which is my partnership with the Dutch. In 2017, I met a Dutch company called Independent Energy. And Independent Energy and I worked together and apply to the Dutch Good Growth Fund through Atradius. And Atradius did the export credit facility for us. As such, it started with very small. I mean, now I can say very small, but then it was big money. It was 120,000 euros. And we were able to bring in solutions that we were able to power a school in Abuja and several other smaller installations for homes and small businesses. And we paid that off, and that gave us goodwill, and we were able to go again for another round. And I think so far we've done like 4 rounds with export credit, and for every round it grew. That also gave my partners independent energy confidence, and I think the Dutch government they were happy to see that happening. And we're able to set up a fund called Independent Energy Fund based in the Netherlands. And this fund, after we got the USTDA feasibility study ready last year, Independent Energy was the first company that believed in us to start deploying the mini grids. I was just talking to Michel earlier and telling him how I would love for him to come launch 2 of the sites in Plateau State, in Mararaban Demshin and Kalong in Shendam local government as well, very close to Shimankar. So this has been possible because there is belief, there is growth. People have seen what we've done with other partnerships and have felt very comfortable working with us to partner with us and deploy these solutions. The USTDA feasibility study enabled us to be able to talk to investors we never will be able to talk to. Currently, we're working with Catalytic Finance. They are funding a TA to ensure that we have all the right licensing with NERC, NEMSA, whatever is necessary. Hopefully, CREETS will be doing that for us as well. And, after that, we now sit down at the table and start talking financing of these projects. It's about 64 sites. Independent Energy Fund in the Netherlands, together with us, founded a JV here called Independent Energy Project Finance Company, which is the holding company. We call it Synergy. And I know the Dutch are very proud of it. They have a 75% stake in there. And that's the company deploying the mini grids in Plateau State. So far, we've done 3 sites. We're on the 3rd site now, it's not finished. But we're going to do 8 sites altogether in Plateau State. We're starting with that. Hopefully, they transition to the Kaduna and the Kogi state sites that we have, because we have 44 sites in Kaduna and 15 in Kogi. Recently, we got together with a partnership from Telcosol in Switzerland to work with USAID on the HETA project. And Kogi State is our lucky state to deploy those solutions. But basically, let me not make it, I just want to acknowledge everyone at the same time while making this happen, discussing this. But at the same time, I want to say that collaborations have been very useful, have helped us to do work that we normally wouldn't do. Ordinarily, would be seated in Kaduna. My company is based out of Kaduna. We'll be seated in Kaduna, hiding there, people being scared to travel down because it's not safe, and we would not be doing work. But luckily, the time before the security situation got this bad, we were able to make our mark, and people trusted us and believed in us to do the work. And every day, even until now, we still have visits from organizations who have heard about what we've done and want to work with us, especially because we have a very huge gender component to our work. And we work very strongly at the nexus of energy and agriculture. So this is what has been possible because we've been able to leverage on all the possibilities that are there for us, and we're still leveraging, and we're still building communities. We're still ensuring that our motto of doing business for the good of society is happening.
Thank you so much. A round of applause. And that just tells you that is a company that was founded in Nigeria by Nigerians, but also has significantly leveraged external partnerships to make things happen, to scale the business, because primarily it is a business, but also more importantly, to also scale the impact. And just before I get on to Susan, if you have a question in the room, may I see your hand? I just want to note my people. Okay, 1, 2. Okay. I see you. Great. So we'll get to you just after this question. And before we go to the next round of questions, as we try to wrap up, I don't want the panel to keep you between your dinner. For some of you that like to have dinner very early, I'm sure it's already too late. Susan, the solar marketplace, how does this initiative or this platform ensure accessibility for both rural and urban users of solar solar energy? But also, when responding, we also like to hear, how does this platform leverage data to inform users and customers about the best solutions that is fit for purpose?
Okay, thank you, David, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be in your company this evening. My name is Susan Essien. I serve as the Deputy Country Director for SNV in Nigeria, and SNV is implementing the solar marketplace project and managing it on behalf of the Dutch government. So we've heard from everybody in the room, from all the speakers, about what's been happening in the solar sector. A lot has been happening on the government end, in the private sector, from the third sector, like ourselves. And in the last, I think 10 years, we've seen growth within the solar sector. But the problem has been that this has been happening in a disaggregated manner, if you would agree with me, for those in the room. And the Dutch government, in its assessment of the sector, recognized this and decided to contribute to improving it by investing in the solar marketplace. Now, the solar marketplace is a platform that just aims to bring the actors within the ecosystem together in a way that improves the efficiency and helps to improve the efficiency of the solar sector. And so you're bringing suppliers, you're bringing product manufacturers, you're bringing developers, you're bringing finance together in a platform. There is an online platform that people can access, and then there's also a physical secretariat with people like us that you can call and we answer and we facilitate those connections offline. And so in terms of how the marketplace improves the access, the marketplace would do that by solving three key problems, I would say. One is to reduce information gaps. We've heard from everybody in the room different things that have been happening in different sectors of the solar, the larger solar sector. Renewable energy. Okay, I looked at you and remember that it's not just solar. Renewable energy. But the marketplace for now is really focusing on solar. We hope that it will move to other aspects of renewable energy. But there are many people who don't just know what's happening. And so the first thing is to reduce the information gap. And so the solar marketplace is getting all of this information. Where are the projects? Who are the developers? And bringing all that to a platform where it is easily and readily accessible by the people who need it. You just need to log in, register, filter, and find the kind of information that you're looking for. So that's one, reducing the information gap. And then also reducing the cost of accessing this information. So if you knew that these solutions exist or the opportunities existed, then how would you get them and at what costs? And so with the platform, once you register with a button, you can click and just make those connections. If you don't want to, there is a physical secretariat that can help you to facilitate and just make those linkages. And the third way I would say that the platform is improving access is also to reduce risks and give people some level of comfort in terms of quality assurance. So you would agree that one of the major risk or hindrances of investing, not just in the solar sector, is really the risk of one, fraud, two, quality. Am I sure of what I'm going to get? People, Michelle said something like that. You've bought batteries that haven't lasted. You have got skilled people to come and install and it hasn't worked. So all of these things were put together because we did the Dutch government did an assessment and what are some of the things that we can do to plug these things. And so the solar marketplace, what we do is to just really have we check every supplier that comes in. There's due diligence, verification, in-depth verification, before we sign up anybody on the platform. So anyone who you see or you find on the platform to a large extent has been verified and has been termed reliable. We have partners who are doing physical checks and verification. We're working closely to find our in-house contacts with the Standards Organization of Nigeria, Because of course, we know people can give certificates that are not real. And so how do we verify those certificates? So I would say in a nutshell, these three ways is how the solar marketplace is in increasing the access. One, reducing information gap. Two, reducing the cost of actually getting this information and accessing the solutions. And then some level of quality assurance within the sector.
Thank you so much, Susan. And so a round of applause, please. Just before I allow you run from that solar marketplace question, there is a website.
There is a website. So just on your Google, just put the Nigeria Solar Marketplace. Oh, well, we can do a demo, but you go in, it's live now. It went live last month. It's about a month old now. We have a few people who have registered, and we'd encourage everyone in the room, please sign up. Thank you.
Fantastic. A round of applause again, please.
The NigeriaSolarMarketplace.com.
Hashtag the NigerianSolarMarketplace.com. Please, I need a microphone all the way to the back because I see there were 2 hands. Now they have multiplied to 4. Thank you. Just before we get to but let's have it all the way to the back. Those 2 gentle hands I saw. But just before we get to those at the back, Mr. Abba, REA is doing a lot, with what you have already explained, also by extension, the government. But I want to believe that there's still opportunity for collaboration, for investment as well, and also for support from different partners who may be willing to provide financing or some sort of support. What kind of support would you say an agency like yours need, and also by extension is needed by the government in order to help engender much more expansion of scaling our energy or renewable energy sector? If you had a blanket, a clear check, what are those kind of support that you think you need to scale what you're already doing, which is a lot?
I will start with the question that was asked just recently in Nairobi, where boasting of working towards electrified 17.5 million Nigerians, and someone that he has seen the data, and in Nigeria there are 40 million without access, apart from those without reliability. What happens to the 27 million? And I don't have an answer to that. So the first is to find solution the other 27 billion, 26.5 Nigerians, for them to have access. We have seen how these access crystallize in development. Listening to what Olu said, Tishimanka is just of an iceberg. A simple provision of 100 kilowatt of mini grid can change the life of our community. Last 4 to 5 weeks, the vice president of our World Bank infrastructure was in Nigeria. We went to Haiti, about 130 kilometers away from here. And to his amazement, was a story of a boy who was schooled in Haiti and had to move out to Haiti to Suleja. And in Suleja, he studied computer. And after the development of the mini grid of 100 kilowatt in Haiti, he moved back to Haiti, where he was born and raised, and where he has his family, and established a training center, a computer training center. He does photocopying, training of Haiti youth in the use of computer. And instantly when we were there, we saw a lady that was training in the center and was writing an application for employment in an opening in Kaduna. Now, this is just to show you how complex a small provision of electricity, the complexity of how it changed the people's life. That lady wouldn't have an opportunity to even know maybe the opportunity in Kaduna. She wouldn't have, even if she had known the opportunity of that employment in Kaduna, she wouldn't have the capacity to apply, if not because of that boy that moved from Suleja back to Peti to establish that training center. So this is just one bit of myriad of life-changing events that electricity access has provided. So one is for us to see, so my ask would be funding to be able to continue to scale up this development to other parts of the area. The second aspect of it, it's also our ability to continue to de-risk the sector by one, mitigating the FX risks, in as much as we continue to provide grant and grant in FX to be able to get the likes of Habiba to continue to do the work they are doing. But that risk still is there. And without the subsidy and the grants, what happens? So be able to see how we can also mitigate the macroeconomics variables to enable the private sector to be able to do their thing. Lastly is also our ask to continue to see the federal government effort towards reducing the security challenges. And a lot of private sector, we from the government want to spread that development across the country. But when we plot the data of NEP, what we saw, it's skewed development to areas where there's relatively safe and other areas that really dearly need it. But because of the security challenge, they may not be able to go to those areas. This is just a bit of our ask.
Pause, please. I think that was clear, that was succinct. One, hashtag leaving no one behind. We want to ensure that we electrify every single person in the country. Two, we're open for more collaboration. There's opportunity to invest in the sector. You may be hearing that some monies, transactions have been closed, but that is not all we need to get to where we need to get to. And so the sector is really open for much more investment. And lastly, on the issues in security, and allow me to say an extension of infrastructure, like our roads and a couple other things that enable us to do business quicker and faster. These are the clear ask. And I'm very, very confident as well. And I would say that the government is already taking meaningful steps in addressing these issues. And so just in case you're an investor in the room, please do not be in a hurry after the session. Please feel free to network, feel free to engage. The MD is here and other practitioners are here. Within the room, we have developers, we have government, we have financiers, and who are here and who are doing the work and talking, not just talking, but walking the talk. And so there's an opportunity here to ensure you exchange cards, ensure that you make meaningful connections that can enable you scale your enterprise. So I see that the microphone is with the first person. Sir, let's keep it.
Okay, can you hear me? All right, thank you. My name is Innocent Odo from Leadership.
Okay. Mr. Innocent, before you ask your question, I want you to make it, to keep it short and simple. I heard that abbreviation recently, KISS. So I wanted to kiss us with a very short and simple question. Go ahead, please.
Okay, it's just simple. The question of funding.
Okay.
I want us to be more specific on ways to fund these projects, because I understand there is a record that shows that Nigeria requires $4 billion annually in order to achieve its sustainable energy goals by 2050. So if we require $4 billion annually, how then do you mobilize resources from different segments here to be able to achieve that goal? Because let's talk specifics now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Thank you. My name is Abel Geyer from Clean Tech Hub. I wanted to ask, especially to Mr. Abaliu as a Government Insider, and the other panelists. So these are mainly targeted programs launched by the REA and other public agencies. So I wanted to know if, to what extent has, in terms of public procurement, the interest in renewable energy diffused to other MDAs, considering that if you look at their budgets, they spend over 4 times the amount on fuel and lubricants, so fuel maintenance and whatever, and a lot owe the existing distribution companies. So to what extent do you see the participation of the normal MDA in the renewable energy sector through public procurement? Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think I saw this gentleman in front. Okay, I have 2 hands on my left. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Greg Odogo. I write for the Punch newspaper. My question goes to Chief Abba again, but this one is technical. Please, what's the percentage of energy efficiency in your infrastructure, if there is? Because I understand that most of the materials you'll be using, cooling, lighting, heating, wouldn't be as the one in the mainstream grid. So I want to know if it helps, what's the percentage of success, and how important is energy efficiency going forward? Thank you.
Thank you. And the very last one.
Good evening. My name is Olajumoke Delano. I'm an energy consultant. So my question is for Chief Abba again. So my question is, I like the fact that you've already recognized that scaling is a big deal, it's required. In order to scale, you need capacity. You also identify the fact that there is a need to enhance the capacity of vehicles that will be delivering the scaling. So I just want you to talk a bit more about what is being done, because while working with a distribution company for about 9 years, one of the challenges being on the forefront of developing mini grids was the capacity of the developers. So what is REA doing? Just letting us know what steps are being taken to ensure that these developers can actually deliver the scale that is required. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, I will take one more because she's a woman. Just that hand over there, please. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Miracle, and my question is for Hajia Habiba. In the communities you've deployed to, what are some of the challenges you experience in changing your perception or transition, to other cleaner forms of energy, and what strategies have you deployed in terms of both finance and creation of an awareness? Thank you.
Great. So, Chief Abba, over to you.
The first question in terms of being specific as regards to the funding, what exactly do we see the funding, or what use should the funding be used for? You referenced the 4 billion required to ensure the electricity access. To answer that question, it's very clear what has worked. The previous funding that the sector has gotten, what part of the funding or has really catalyzed a lot of impact. The Nigeria Electrification Project has been a reference project in the entire Africa. I was in Nairobi, still just came back last week, and the entire 4 days of that conversation was around the Nigeria Electrification Project. In fact, one of the conclusions of that summit is for REAs to establish an African Renewable Energy Learning Center. Already, as I came back on Saturday, there has been 2 emails from Burkina Faso and Sierra Leone that they want to come and learn how we implement our project. Dr. Adaji was there also, he can testify to that. And the reason, because we implemented a targeted project whereby the funding were specifically targeted to areas with maximum impact. We used a result-based financing, which worked in Nigeria. It's one of the most fantastic things that has ever happened in the history of the renewable space in this country, whereby we incentivized the private sector. We moved away from giving the contract to developers, but we incentivized the private sector on the condition that they perform first. Then we now give them the subsidy and grants. So the funding should be used for that purpose. We have seen how it has worked, and this is what should be done to continue to scale up such kind of projects. That's for the second question in terms of public procurement, how we see this, the MDAs adopting this public procurement to key into the renewable space. We have seen it all. We have intervened in a number of sectors of the country. We have done the energizing education whereby we powered a number of universities. And I also give you a typical example. I like to give real example, not cliche theories. There was a presentation that was done by the Vice Chancellor of Umudike University, where we provided the hybrid mini-grid for 10 years. They have been using it for 10 years. He gave a typical analysis that in 5 years, that university has saved 630 million naira from the from purchase of diesel. And he also mentioned that they saved 1,170,465,000 naira from NEPA bills, right? Disco bills, whatever you call it, NEPA bills, right? And he mentioned that this 1,170,000 that they saved was calculated based on the former tariff of Band A before the revised tariff. So you can imagine at that time it was 86, 87 naira or 90 something naira to 200 and something. So it will be almost 300% of that amount that they saved. So we have seen that the capability of our intervention to save these MDAs. Why the MDAs are not adopting this is also because of the capital requirement to be able to quickly deploy this project. It's capital intensive, but already there's a discussion that ARIA is having with the budget office, whereby we're looking at the possibility of floating bond to be able to raise the funding to solarize these MDAs and use that budget line to service the bond over a period of time. So that is something how crazy we are thinking to address that. In terms of the last question, Channel, to me, what we have done and to the vehicle that I implemented the rest course, and this is very important to us because the sustainability of all our intervention is contingent upon the financial viability and capacity of the vehicles that are implementing this project. What we all know is that a renewable intervention have a lifespan. After a particular period of time, you may need to replace the capital project. So we want to make sure that these vehicles that are deploying this mini grid renewable project infrastructure have the ability to have the financing to replace these cost-intensive capital projects once their lifespan ends. And that is why we are working with the DRIFT. The DRIFT looks at 3 things. One, the first is the corporate governance and internal structure of the race course, the renewable service company. The second part of it is deal pipelining, to be sure that they have deals that are bankable that can attract financing. And the last part of it is the compatibility of that deal pipelining, to make sure that whatever they have in their pipeline, at least 60% of it is converted into financing so that they continue to catalyze that. And we already have seen Some of the rescues in Nigeria are already operating internationally. Heaven Hill, they are operating in Sierra Leone. ACOB are also doing some projects in Liberia. Prado, we know they are also doing something internationally. So we have seen that, but we want to up it further to make sure that they have that intense capacity, because we are not looking at what we have seen in Nairobi. What other African countries are there is an opportunity for Nigerian firms to not only go to this in the countries, but to take over the entire Africa. And that opportunity is there, and we will crystallize it and make it reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. A round of applause, please, for the MDREA for such brilliant responses to those questions. Hajab Habiba, would you like to take the question?
Thank you for your question. Talking about the challenges that we meet in deploying our projects in the communities. Of course, one of the biggest ones for me is most of the, at least 70% of the financial support that we've gotten to help, smoothen the way has been counterpart funding. And counterpart funding means you need to find maybe 30%, 50% of the funding, depending on the finance that you're getting. And sometimes doing a project of, say, $300,000 or $1 million is getting 30% of that money is not cheap, right? And finding it is really difficult. Somehow we've been able to manage it, with kind of supports that we've gotten from, say, an Atradius or Kiva. Kiva had a very special fund that they were given. They call it direct to social enterprise, that you only pay transaction fees. The same with the Atradius fees. You also only pay transaction fees. It's a zero interest rate financing. Then going forward, it is also being able to get, I work in the North. I work with a lot of women in the North, and being able to get the women to work with you. You see the vision and you see like the value that this will bring to them. And you're trying to ensure that it's not just the men you always bring on board. The women are also getting, you want to promote inclusivity, and getting the women to see what you're saying is a journey. And the journey always starts from actually ensuring that the husbands or the male influence in their lives allows them to. That kind of slows up some of our interventions and, makes us, gives us a bit of setback. Another one is, was talking about building the rest schools, and the reason being sustainability. Some of the sites that we've seen in the past, and this has really influenced us a lot, is with time, really. I remember our mini grid, the Ba'awa, and now we've had to change batteries. And it's not cheap to change those batteries, because when you compare it to the amount of money these people pay in electricity, it's really, really not. Between 2016 and now, it's just 8 years, and we're already changing, maybe less. Yeah, 8 years, and we're already changing batteries, fixing inverters and all of that. It's a 10 kilowatt system, luckily, so it's not a big deal. But I'm thinking about the 100 and over 100 kilowatt systems that we're doing with Synergy in Plateau State and looking forward. But the good thing about working with the Dutch is you get top class work. Really, my partners are so finicky about even the tiniest things, and they look at other solutions that are already existing and find the loopholes there and try to plug it. I can proudly say our mini grids are one of the best in the country, and you can, hold my words for it anywhere. Then I think I would say financing. I've already mentioned financing, right?
Cultural changes.
Yeah, the cultural changes is a bit of a problem, but inflation and other things has actually made that reduce a bit, because people are also beginning to realize that if you don't let this woman, men actually in the North, if you don't let this woman go and bring money, you won't do it alone. Some of them marry 4 wives, and each wife has 7 children. somehow something has to give, right? And this is one of the reasons we have so much, we call it al-majire, but children on the streets. I think it's because there's just too many people to take care of. And do that, if we want to, and I look at my work as work that would actually help solve insurgency as well. Because one thing that the religion, Islam, has actually made inherent in our lives, and because the North is, predominantly Muslim, is that people have a deep respect for their mothers. The religion makes sure that your mother, they say your mother has your heaven on her feet or something like that. So when I know somebody I was having a conversation with that told me he can never do a military job and he can never be an insurgent because his mother swore for him that any day he carries a gun, something is going to happen to him. So imagine that these women are empowered, able to train their children, well, able to have that kind of strong sense of, don't do this because I said so, because your heaven is at my feet. That could actually make a lot of people decide not to join this banditry and insurgency. So how do we empower these women? This is where I come from. Make them have economic empowerment to the point of, like we say in Pidgin, money, now money, they make people respect you. If you don't get money, even your pikin no go respect you, So it means like, if you don't have money, your child will not respect you. So if she has money and she can actually dictate some of the things in her life, in their lives, I mean, not controlling. So the Dutch, don't worry, I'm not saying this control them, but at least here where we come from, actually, our parents mean a lot to us and they practically dictate our lives to a certain point. So if she's strong economically and can actually tell the child, don't do this, the child thinks of what the mother has done in their lives, what the mother stands to, and then even the future fact that she's also the reason he enters heaven. That's going to be a big difference. So those are the challenges that we face, but hopefully the cultural ones are really lessening and people are becoming, better. It's easier to talk to them. And then on a final level, working with collaboration with multilateral organizations like the NESP, where we did the Nigerian Institutional Clean Cooking Acceleration Scheme with them using LPG stoves. We're currently battling with them on the IMAS program. The truth of the matter is sometimes they come in and find organizations that are not really as strong as they would want it to be. And somebody said something about strengthening the developers. There's been a lot of work that organizations like that have done in strengthening our capacities, our activities, and bringing us up to speed. That we've been through a lot of trainings with, for sure, NESP. I was one of the trainers that was trained to actually develop solutions as well under their programs. So I was going to say how to take it forward and ensure that we have the right kind of staffing, and when you walk up north and you walk in the kind of space that I work, where you're just looking at the impact and the work that you're doing, paying staff the kind of money some of the staff are asking for, because there are not many of them, is not cheap, really.
That's brilliant. A round of applause, please. Our time has been fast spent. And I don't want this panel session to end, but I think it would be wrong if I keep on saying I don't want to keep you from your dinner and still try to keep you from your dinner. And so as I try to wrap up this panel session just in a few seconds, okay, as you leave this panel, there are a number of developers in the room who are thinking of how to scale their businesses, how tough it is to run a business in Nigeria, such as the renewable energy business. In your final words on this panel, what are your words of hope that is possible? I mean, you export to several parts of the world, producing locally. So what would be your counsel to developers in the room who are thinking of cutting from the business and just hanging there? Thank you.
Thank you so much. There's a saying that When the risk is high, the reward is higher. There's a lot of risk in doing manufacturing in Nigeria, but the truth is those risks has been there before you thought about going into manufacturing. So you don't need to complain. That you are complaining, it means that you are not innovative enough, you don't understand your market, and you don't know how you can be able to harness the opportunities. The population of Nigeria is a unique selling point. Another thing is that the currency has been devalued, but when you think how you can export, is also an advantage for you, because when a currency is devalued, then the export becomes more lucrative. So these are the things that people need to understand. We're exporting outside Nigeria, and I can tell you that it's been wonderful for us in terms of revenue, and it has also been able to stabilize us against the currency risk and FX issues. So it's about the ability of the vision drivers to understand that our numbers in terms of population count for you, and also for you to also understand when you produce locally, the import goods, you can match them with pricing. Because when you import cook stoves in Nigeria, it comes with a 30% duty and clearing fees. So I can also sell and also match that pricing that is coming into Nigeria, and it gives me leverage to be able to sell more. So it's about how this team can be able to understand that there is silver lining in these challenges that we see in manufacturing, and they can be able to grow it better.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And to you, Susan, you mentioned that the marketplace brings different people from service providers to those who are also seeking to leverage service providers. How can a service provider in the room get on board?
Okay, that's simple. Just go to the solar marketplace. Once you open it, you can sign in. If you are a service provider, yes, you can register. There are a few things that you can do depending on the level of what you have been categorized as. Once you sign up, you will have to give us some time for your application to be accepted. And like I said, we will, undertake some type of verification, due diligence. We aim to do that within 48 hours. Have all the checks, at least the basic ones, to be able to say, okay, yes, you can sign up. So you do that, you filter. If you want to connect to a business, you click connect. The business will receive a message to say Mr. OK of Cook Stove wants to connect with you. And if you view his profile and you want to connect, you can accept. So we have those facilities and features on the site. I think that it is relatively easy to navigate, but then there is a number as well on the site that you can call and get help.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And Eze, leading on clean cooking and EVs, how can we really drive this cost? And more importantly, drive this cost down? And more importantly, how is the NESP through the new program specifically targeting the EVs, and when I say EVs, electric vehicles sector and clean cooking sector, as we wrap up?
Okay, thank you very much, David, for your question. So let me start with the EV side. So yeah, how we can drive the cost down. Luckily, the federal government has already led the way by removing or by announcing that VAT has been removed. Of course, implementation is still another area which we would, wait to see how it goes. But then again, there are several other things, that could be done. What I would like to say would be like a cross-cutting approach by different sectors. There's a policy angle, which we mentioned earlier, which helps to reduce the cost. But then also, one area that we are looking at is how to incentivize charging, because one of the challenges in the EV sector is inadequate charging infrastructure, and only like only about a handful of states, you can say that there is some sort of charging infrastructure. And and to that effect, NESP has entered into a collaboration with the National Automobile Design and Development Corporation and NADDC, where over the coming weeks, we hope to support with guidelines for EV charging. Hopefully, try to see how we can have that streamlined approach towards getting in the sector something very streamlined, like I said before, to look at that angle. And then so yes, in one area, charging as well. Then there are also plans to look at how we can generate some market intelligence and some studies. By that, we hope to work with the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry to see how we can do some industry study that looks at the consumer side of the EV sector, particularly the four-wheelers, because a lot of work, or there's a lot of buzz around 2- and 3-wheelers, which is highlighted by the logistics part of the subsector. Yeah. But then and then of course the CNG initiatives as well. But then nothing isn't really happening on the consumer side of say the four-wheelers and all. So we want to also look at understanding that a bit better, and then seeing how we can seeing how EVs can be mainstreamed into the entire
value chain,
transportation sector. Exactly. So we're looking at that angle. Now, to segue to clean cooking, of course, a lot of work we have been doing in terms of awareness creation and sensitization. Last week, we just had the National Clean Cooking Forum at Abuja Continental, where we always try to see how we can support the clean cooking policy, how it can be streamlined down, and then support all the local manufacturers to see how we can improve their visibility of the core clean cooking topics. And then on our own part, we have our own intervention as well, which seeks at promoting clean cooking adoption, which will be technology specific. So in areas and the markets where LPG makes most sense, like for some of the businesses that can recoup on their investments quickly, we support the manufacturers to push that. And then in the household areas where improved cook stoves would make more sense, especially from an economic point of view, we also support manufacturers to push that. So we have an intervention which will be launching hopefully in November, which looks at deploying over 2,000 stoves to both households and SMEs as well. So I mean, if you put all this together, also leveraging on other platforms and support, exactly. I mean, the picture begins to look a bit clearer.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Eze. And a round of applause, please. And Haja Biba, a lot of women are in the room and they see that the renewable sector looks like a sector that you must be an engineer to thrive. How can we demystify this thing for women so that a young lady in the room thinks that she can meaningfully contribute to the sector without being an engineer? I know that the team is telling us that we need to end now, but we need this juice from you, and so let's have it.
I'll do it quickly. I am a BSc accounting graduate, a master's in banking and finance, PhD in management. So I've got zero an engineering background. The truth is, I think it comes from passion and the spirit to try. And I also always used to say, though now as I grow older, I don't say it anymore. It's the willingness to get your hands dirty, the willingness to not wear really nice nails and very beautiful outfits. Because if you work in the rural areas like I do, there are some things that you just have to give up on. And when people are thinking about other things, your focus is also somewhere else. So for a very long time in my life, I didn't have this soft life. I'm trying to have it now. I'm beginning to cultivate it.
I like that.
Hopefully I win, because the economy is not allowing us actually see if the soft life will even exist. Seems like utopia. But yeah, it's really difficult. Actually, I'll make sure that I put that out there. To be a woman in this sector for the length of time I've been. I mean, when I started Sose, I don't think there was any other woman-owned company, at least in West Africa. And
that's a good place to clap.
yeah. And it was at the point that I also didn't even know what I was doing truly. I was just passionate, because what scared me into doing the work was a fear that kept me awake at night. And I really, really wanted to see something done. And that's why it seemed like I was dabbling into almost everything. The truth of the matter was I just wanted a solution. And I just thought, if I have access, why not? And it's now that I really want to make money. I hope I can.
And we assure you, Ria, a round of applause, please. And are there, Chief Abba, as we put this panel to a pause and try to continue at next year's NESG, one critical thing that we see within the space is that companies are beginning to scale and scale fast. But how do we address the bottlenecks that impede companies from collaborating with utility companies and ensuring that they can scale their enterprises, especially those that want to serve huge amounts of customers and collaborate with the grid?
Seriously, quickly, that has really changed. And it's also a question that we continuously be asked, what changed? Initially, the distribution companies, they don't want anything from developers or partnership. But it's on record that just recently the discourse have provided us with 600 interconnected sites for us to build interconnected mini grids, of which we are project developing 40 of these sites that we are going to auction. The procurement document will be out sometime in November as the first aspect of the DES project. So everything has really changed. We don't even know what to do with the other 60 sites that they have given us, and continuously they are doing it. What makes them change, I don't know, but definitely there's some element of regulation whereby the regulator has requested that the distribution company should have some of their embedded generation from renewable. So that incentivizes them. And also the knowledge now that they have acquired to know that having a developer to come into their franchise area and build their renewable energy is a win-win for them. I think basically this is what has motivated them. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. A huge round of applause. So for him and everyone on this panel, has this been an exciting panel? Has it been informative? Has it been insightful? Did you have fun? I promised you it was going to be fun. I just wanted to thank you, our panelists, and those who have also contributed to tonight's session, and also you, our very patient audience, who have listened, who are contributors to this sector. We couldn't have done this without you, and we are so grateful to hear your thoughts, to receive your contributions. One thing you can be certain is this is not just talk. And why did we have specific people from government, from private sector, from the development community? Because a specific outcomes document is going to be shared and see how this can further strengthen the quality of work we do within the sector. My name is David Arinze. It's been a pleasure moderating this panel. So on that note, we'll call it a pause. See you at NES 31. A round of applause again. Thank you.
Now we please appreciate David Arinze. The rest they'll be joined by Dr. Shagun Adaju and Mr. Michelle Dillon. We will soon take